Tomorrow, Pope Benedict will leave the Vatican on a helicopter for a retreat outside of Rome. He will remove himself completely from the public eye, dedicating himself to prayer and meditation. But the big question remains is really what lies ahead, not just for the Vatican, but also for the church that he leaves behind. And for more, we're very pleased to be joined by Sister Janet Ruffing, a professor of spirituality and ministerial leadership at the Yale Divinity School. And Sister Ruffing is the president of the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality and has published several books on both religion and spirituality. And she's very kind to join us here in studio. Sister, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, let's first talk about the man who said farewell today, Pope Benedict. What do you think his legacy will be? And obviously, it's been marked by both transition and obviously by scandal here. And the Vatican obviously has acknowledged what everyone knows. But how do you think he'll be remembered?
I think he's going to be remembered as one of our important popes. As you know, kind of the downside that he leaves behind, he was very Eurocentric as the church was becoming more world-centric. Yep. He was a quiet scholar, and in his own personality, he's actually made room to give the cardinals quite a lot of freedom to choose somebody who's different from both himself and John Paul II.
Yep.
So I think he's an important interim figure. I had hoped that he would have reinstituted the married clergy as for very long-standing pastoral reasons, because the fastest growing part of the church in Latin America and in Africa experiences Eucharistic famine.
Yep.
So that I thought, with it not being doctrinal, we had 12 centuries of a
Yep.
married clergy. This was something he could have
Almost
done.
no one, I'm so glad you said that, because when the concept comes up of allowing priests to marry, people are like, oh my God, what a foreign thought. And I said, no, we actually had this in our church. It had to do with
centuries.
economics. And I
Yes,
also say,
yes.
you know, some fears of nepotism, whatever, but we actually had this for a long time. And we managed to have quite a prosperous church at the time here. So it's not as foreign a concept. But maybe it'll be considered, since it's been 600 years since we've had a pope resign. As an active sister here, when the Vatican clamped down on sisters, for many people, it was such an unnecessary, but also a very painful move. And not a lot's been spoken about that, but obviously, as a member of the largest element of that, you can speak to that.
Well, it's a painful time for women religious in this country, and most of us are pretty convinced it's a very big mistake, and that it's not Benedict himself who was behind it all. So we're pretty hopeful that perhaps with this change in transition,
Yep.
that we might get a little more sense around this. It was people pretty much in Rome
Yeah.
who were out of touch with what sisters actually do and how committed we are to the church and how much we love the church. I mean, really just misinformation.
That to me is the part that so aggravates me, and I'll put my words so I won't get you in any trouble, but it's been after the scandals were at their height. We were promised the laity would be heard. But if anything, it's gone the other way. And to a certain degree, look at Mass now. It's more of a literal translation than it was before. It seems like we're going backwards in time when you have fewer people in the pews. You have fewer people joining the vocations. How do you think that the Vatican looks at the state of affairs right now of Catholicism globally?
Well, I think they're looking more world-centric, and they do not understand the American Catholic Church. I think it's largely not understanding the U.S.
But isn't the problem not that dissimilar in Europe, though?
Well, they don't understand us in our strange combination of very high religiosity and at the same time a very secular society.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit the categories. So I think they don't know what to do with us, basically. And I think what we're seeing here, to put it theologically, is we're still in the conflict of interpretations over Vatican II. We're 50 years. We're 50 years past Vatican II,
yep.
And what we had hoped has gotten rolled back. And this is a critical moment for the Church in terms of, will this conclave choose someone who will move in continuity with Vatican II and what it promised. And that's particularly collegiality among the bishops, as well as learning to listen to the whole church. The church is growing dramatically in the southern hemispheres.
Yep.
And we've lost 40% of the ethnic European Americans from the Roman Catholic Church. Our numbers look stable in the U.S. because of large numbers of Hispanics who have crossed the border, as we're aware of. So we as Americans need to be thinking that we're part of a world church and that we're not the center of the universe in terms of the Roman Catholic world. So that asks of us an embrace of everyone as our brothers and sisters. And we're not quite there as a public either, as Roman Catholics or as Americans. And that's all part of this picture.
It also seems interesting, and maybe to the untrained ear I'm missing some messages on Sunday, but the focus of the church, and it's very clear on social issues, they're conservative. And if anyone thinks the church is going to change its position on issues of abortion or choice, they're delusional. And I think that they should, think about something different. However, I remember at least there used to be more of a message of feed the hungry and clothe the naked. And that still is a large mission of the church, but you hear less of that as one of the main components, that it looks out for the neediest here. It does great works, but it seems so much time on Sundays is spent on some political social fights rather than what, I don't know, a lot of Catholics, and I don't think it's just myself, believe was part of the core mission too, which was to speak out for those who didn't have a voice.
Yes. Well, it was interesting when I was reflecting on what I was going to say today about Benedict's legacy. He wrote some very interesting theological pieces. His very first encyclical was Deus Caritas Est, God is Love. Mm-hmm. And I personally found it refreshing to hear, to hear this very positive message. And it was the first papal document that quoted secular authors rather than exclusively other popes. So he wrote that piece, he wrote another piece on hope, and in his last encyclical, Caritatis et Veritate, is really his social teachings, and they're beautiful statements in there. One of them, such as, globalization has made us neighbors, but the gospel, or our being children of the same God, call us to be brother and sister to one another. So we hope that this is a time to reflect on where the church is going, what the church needs, how we balance resources, how maybe the Vatican itself could embrace a simpler lifestyle.
Yep.
With a fewer perks and
Mm-hmm.
more collegial atmosphere. It would go a very, very long way.
I think you're right. Finally, are you optimistic or a little worried what'll come out of this conclave, the next pontiff, and maybe a missed opportunity, or do you think they know the stakes right now and they'll choose the right person for the right time?
I would hope for someone who would be moderate and who would be able to both reform the Curia, which has been out of control, which would re-establish collegiality among the bishops so that people can really speak with one voice, but having heard each other's voices. And then there's the huge women's question, which I don't think can be dealt with until we restore the married clergy. I really think we need to be a church that is about the gospel.
You think in our lifetime we'll see that?
The married clergy?
Yeah.
I think we have to.
We can only hope. Sister, thank you so much. I appreciate the time. Thank you
You're
for a few
welcome.
minutes. All right, everyone. RFL will be right back right after this. Please stay with us.